The stadium held its breath. The Super Bowl clock was down to its final seconds, and every eye in the world was glued to the field. The underdog, the player no one believed in, stood at the center of the storm, ready to make a move that would be remembered for generations. No one had expected him to be here. Not the coaches who had once dismissed him, not the analysts who never mentioned his name, and certainly not the fans who barely knew who he was. He had been counted out since the very beginning, too slow, too small, not good enough. But destiny has a strange way of favoring those who never stop believing. The ball snapped, and everything moved in slow motion. Every ounce of effort, every sleepless night, every whispered doubt led to this moment. His body reacted on instinct, one perfect play. And just like that, the impossible happened. A touchdown, a game-saving interception, a blocked kick. Whatever it wasn't just another highlight. It was the moment that changed the course of NFL history forever. And it all started with a player who no one thought would even make the team. From the very beginning, the odds were stacked against him. In high school, coaches barely noticed him during tryouts. He was undersized, slower than his peers, and lacked the raw athleticism that scouts loved to see. While others were praised for their natural talent, he was benched, labeled as just another body on the roster. When college recruiters visited his games, their eyes passed right over him. No scholarship offers came, no interest letters arrived in the mail. While his teammates celebrated offers from major football programs, he faced the harsh truth. No one believed he had what it took. But instead of quitting, he worked harder. Early mornings were spent running drills alone on empty fields. Late nights were dedicated to studying game footage, understanding the intricacies of plays and patterns. Every rejection fueled his determination to prove everyone wrong. Still, his biggest heartbreak came during the NFL draft. 7 rounds passed, and his name was never called. The commentators never mentioned him. His phone remained silent. Undrafted, forgotten. He was forced to watch as players he had once outworked signed lucrative contracts and took their place on NFL rosters. But rather than walking away from the game he loved, he took a chance, accepting an invitation to an NFL training camp as an undrafted free agent. The message was clear. You're here to fill space, not to make the team. Every practice felt like survival. Coaches ignored him, veterans brushed past him, and media outlets didn't even bother to learn his name. The doubts crept in every night. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe everyone else was right. But giving up was never an option. Every drill, every rep, every drop of sweat was his silent answer to the doubters. He was not the fastest. He was not the strongest. But his work ethic was unmatched, and his hunger to prove himself was unbreakable. All he needed was one chance, and sooner than anyone expected, that opportunity would come knocking. Opportunities in the NFL are rare, and second chances are even rarer. His moment arrived when no one else wanted it. During a routine practice, a starter went down with an injury. Coaches scrambled to reshuffle the roster, but the depth chart left them with only one option: call up the undrafted rookie. Get in there, the coach barked. The air felt heavier as he stepped onto the field, surrounded by veterans who barely acknowledged him. The defenders across from him. Some of the league's most elite players, men who had no intention of making his life easy. The first play was simple, a short route across the middle. The quarterback fired the ball his way with the kind of speed that could break fingers if mishandled. But instinct took over. His hands found the ball cleanly, and he turned upfield for a first down. Coaches noticed, teammates too. The next few plays brought more of the same: precise routes, reliable hands, and unrelenting hustle. By the end of the practice, the whispers on the sideline had shifted. Who is this guy? Where has he been hiding? The real breakthrough came during a preseason game when the coach gave him a chance in the fourth quarter, a time typically reserved for backups and rookies trying to prove themselves. With the clock winding down, the team was trailing by 3 points. It was a meaningless game in the standings, but to him it was everything. The play was called a deep route down the sideline. As the ball soared through the air, every second felt like an eternity. He sprinted with everything he had, leaped at the last possible moment, and pulled the ball down over a defender's outstretched hands. Touchdown. The stadium wasn't full, but those who were there rose to their feet. Coaches looked at each other in disbelief. His teammates, who once barely spoke to him, now rushed to congratulate him. For the first time in his career, he had done more than survive. He had earned respect, and deep down he knew this was only the beginning. Respect was earned, but the real challenge was proving that it wasn't just a one-time performance. The following weeks would test everything he had worked for. Coaches started giving him more snaps during practice, small opportunities to show that his breakout moment was not a fluke. His confidence grew with every pass caught, every clean block, and every perfectly executed route. Then the real season began. In week 1, he was a backup, nothing more than a role player. But fate had other plans. An injury to another starter pushed him into the game earlier than expected. This time, there were no second chances. He had to deliver. And deliver he did. His first official game stats: SWAT, 7 receptions, 110 yards, 1 touchdown. By the second game, commentators were already taking notice. This kid might be the biggest surprise of the season. The player nobody believed in is starting to make believers out of everyone. Week after week, his stats climbed. Defensive coordinators adjusted their strategies to cover him, but it didn't matter. His route running was too sharp, his footwork too precise, and his hands too reliable under pressure. By mid-season, his name was on every analyst's radar. Teammates who had once overlooked him now depended on him for big plays. He became a go-to target in high-pressure situations, pulling off clutch catches and critical first downs when the team needed him the most. But it wasn't just his numbers that made him stand out, it was his attitude. He remained humble, the first to arrive at practice and the last to leave. He mentored younger players, showing them that hard work could bridge the gap between dreams and reality. The defining moment came in a nationally televised game against a top-tier defense. Late in the fourth quarter, with the team trailing by 4 points, he made a leaping catch over 2 defenders to score the game-winning touchdown. The crowd exploded. The media headlines the next day said it all. The player no one believed in is taking over the league. Underdog turned star. Is this the NFL's newest legend? The doubts were gone. Now, the only question left was, how far could he go? The season had become something no one could have predicted. What started as a chance to fill in for an injured starter had evolved into something much bigger. With every game, his confidence soared, and so did his impact on the league. Coaches designed plays around him. Defenses doubled their coverage, trying and failing to contain his explosive potential. But the defining moment of his career would not come in a regular season game. It would happen on the biggest stage of them all, the Super Bowl. The underdog team had made an improbable run through the playoffs, and now the brightest lights in football shone directly on him. Despite being the breakout star of the season, the doubts resurfaced in pregame analysis. Can he handle the pressure of the biggest game of his life? Will the fairy tale season finally end here? But this time, he was ready to silence them forever. The game was a battle from the opening kickoff. Every yard was hard-earned, every point a result of pure grit and determination. By the fourth quarter, the game was tied. The energy in the stadium was electric, and millions of fans around the world were glued to their screens. With only 30 seconds left on the clock, his team had the ball, and the coach called a risky play, a deep route down the sideline. The quarterback took the snap, stepped back, and launched the ball into the air. Time seemed to slow as the ball spiraled toward its target. He sprinted downfield, tracking the ball's every movement. The defender was with him stride for stride, trying to block his every move. But in the final seconds, he leaped, higher than he ever had before, and pulled down the ball with one hand. Touchdown. The stadium erupted. His teammates rushed toward him, lifting him into the air as confetti rained from the sky. The commentators screamed into their microphones, calling it one of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history. The moment that changed the NFL forever. A player no one believed in had just delivered a performance that would be remembered for generations. History had been made. The confetti had settled, but the echoes of that final touchdown would never fade. As he stood on the championship stage, the Super Bowl MVP trophy in his hands, the weight of his journey hit him all at once. From a player no one believed in to the man who sealed one of the greatest moments in NFL history, the impossible had become reality. The reporters swarmed him after the game, microphones shoved in his face, all asking the same question. How did you do it? How did you overcome every doubt and every obstacle to get here? His answer was simple but powerful. No one else needed to believe in me. I just had to believe in myself. Every practice, every moment of doubt, every time someone told me I couldn't, I was building this moment. Across the league, his story became more than just a highlight reel. It became a symbol of hope for underdogs everywhere. Young athletes looked up to him, inspired by his resilience and relentless determination. Coaches used his journey as motivation for players who felt overlooked or underestimated. But his impact didn't stop on the field. He launched programs to support undrafted and practice squad players, providing mentorship and financial assistance for those fighting for their NFL dreams. His locker room leadership became legendary, teaching younger teammates the importance of discipline, hard work, and believing when no one else will. His name became synonymous with perseverance. Commentators called his rise the greatest underdog story in NFL history. Analysts credited him with reshaping how scouts evaluated talent, focusing less on physical stats and more on heart, determination, and grit. When asked about retirement years later, he smiled and said, "It's not about how long you play, it's about what you leave behind." And what he left was more than records or rings. It was a legacy of relentless effort, unbreakable belief, and the power of never giving up. The player no one believed in had not only changed the game, he had changed the future of the NFL forever. If his story inspired you, share this video with someone chasing their own dream. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible NFL stories that prove anything is possible.